Political disinformation is not a new concept, but it's spread more rapidly in recent years. False information about elections has led to a large group of Americans who believe the U.S. presidential election was fraudulent. And that spread of disinformation is widely blamed for causing the assault on the U.S. Capitol and for protests across the country. Richard Hasen is the author of Cheap Speech: How Disinformation Poisons Our Politics and How to Cure It. He joins me now to talk more about this. Richard, we thank you for your time. Given this technological age that we're in, where anybody can create an app like Parler, where false information spreads so freely, is it even possible to fight and correct disinformation?
Well, what makes it a challenge is that in the United States, we have a commitment to both free and fair elections and to free speech. And so it's very hard to think about how to control speech without a law that might violate the First Amendment. So we need to think about ways short of censorship to try to give voters tools to be able to figure out what information is true and false, like labeling manipulated videos, so-called deepfakes, as altered, so that voters realize when they're looking at something, it might not actually be genuine.
You explained the cheap speech era as a time where there's an infinite number of unchecked sources that people can absorb information from. That's how disinformation has become so widespread. But what are some of the benefits of being in this era?
Well, I mean, there are many benefits of being in an era when it is inexpensive to share ideas. Back in the 1970s, if you saw something in your local newspaper and you didn't agree with it, you could write a letter to the editor. If you're very lucky, it would get published. Today, anyone can put up anything on social media, and how far it spreads depends on how much interest there is from other people. Think about the racial justice movement, the George Floyd protests. All of that came because people were able to share videos of police going after people they've arrested. We were able to organize, protests and things like that. So there definitely are benefits to being able to share information freely, but it also comes with a cost, as you said, of people spreading false claims that can impinge on the free exercise of voting and potentially threaten our democracy.
Is this really a threat to democracy, or is it a potential threat to democracy? I'm trying to get a sense of how significant the risk is at this moment in time.
I think the risk is very serious right now. You have millions of people who believe the false claim that the 2020 election is stolen. And if you believe the last election was stolen, you might be more willing to do things to steal it back. If we had been just a little unluckier on January 6th, we would have had a situation where members of the political leadership could have been killed. It could have led to declaration of martial law. It could have been that we would not have had a peaceful transition of power. I think things got much closer to losing our democracy, at least for a time, than many people recognize.
You have this horrific, unique American moment in the Capitol insurrection. Does that make people more cognizant of this risk of disinformation, or does it actually fuel it and infuse it with more reckless energy?
Well, I think for some people who believe that the election was stolen, this is a moment that was maybe a precursor to what's to come. I think for many people, the Trump era was exhausting, and a lot of people have tuned out of politics. And I think that's dangerous because right now, we're holding elections in 2022 for many people who are going to be running the presidential election in 2024. And some of them have embraced the false claims that the election was stolen. Just think about if some of these people are running elections. Are those who are on the other side of this issue, who believe correctly that we had a fair 2020 election, are they going to accept election results that are announced by people who are conspiracy theorists? And so I think, although there's been a lot of concern on the right about whether our elections are being fairly run, we're going to see a lot of concern on the left about that as well, depending on who is counting the votes next time around.
It feels like this rise in disinformation is accompanied by a rise in hate speech, anti-Semitism. We saw that in Charlottesville, and we've seen more of it since. There's a connection there.
Well, certainly, if you had hateful ideas in the past, you couldn't express them so easily and have them reach so many people. And you also couldn't find other like-minded people so easily. So one of the things that happened in the run-up to January 6th was that people who had hateful ideas, who wanted to commit violence, were able to find each other and organize through Facebook groups and through other social media platforms and use that as an organizing principle to move forward. So I do think that it's not just about speech being hurtful and hurting people's feelings, but about providing the basis for potentially action in the real world that can have serious consequences.
Richard Hasen, author of Cheap Speech, thank you for your time.
Thank you.